Hi guys, Shira here. I'm just going to start this one with a quick update about the response to my Not Macleod Tell video that I posted a few weeks ago. Apparently, the entire staff and administration at JCT has seen the video. The few that actually believe what I said think that this is an individual, isolated situation. Obviously, these people aren't very good listeners because I clearly stated in my video that this is not the first time something like this has happened, and it's not just the nursing program, and it's not just the Macleod Tell campus. As of yet, not a single faculty member has asked to speak to me personally. Actually, one of them wants to speak to my father, and another sent my father a personal letter. Yes, I am in elementary school. In other news, I just finished a month's rotation in a psychiatric hospital in Israel. From what I understand, most people will never have the chance, no, the opportunity to experience such a thing. So I thought it would be interesting to share my experience with you. Due to patient privacy, etc., all the stories are true, but all the names and specific details have been changed. For this hospital rotation, I was placed in a closed women's ward, which means that the doors are always locked because they don't want the patients to escape. You need a pass card to get through most doors, like to enter and exit the ward itself, of course, to get into the nurse's station, the kitchen, the doctor's offices, the therapy room. Even after a full semester of psychiatry class, my friends and I were really nervous about doing our placement here. None of us had ever been exposed to someone with a mental illness. I'm like, what were we afraid of even? I don't know, like being attacked by some crazy patient, of going crazy ourselves, maybe just the fear of the unknown, the fear of the unexpected. Psychiatric medicine is very different from physical medicine. Let's take, for example, a patient who comes into the emergency room with sharp abdominal pain in the right lower quadrant. It's fairly easy to diagnose him with appendicitis and tell him that he needs to have his appendix surgically removed to treat the problem, maybe prescribe him a few painkillers, and his prognosis will be excellent. On the other hand, what if someone comes into the emergency room in an acute psychotic state? He's hearing and seeing things that don't exist, and he's attacking anyone who tries to approach him because the voices in his head are commanding him to do so. And on top of that, this isn't the first time he's been off his meds in the 15 years he's been in the mental health system. I think that we can all agree that the second patient situation isn't as simple and straightforward as the first. So to sum up the psychiatric ward, well, let's just say it's like straight out of the movies. So we walk in on the first day, accompanied by our clinical advisor, trying our best to avoid all possible eye contact with the patients. Some patients are yelling obscenities or pure gibberish, others are wandering around or just sitting on chairs staring into space in a drug-induced daze. And there are even a couple of patients who seem completely normal, that if you'd see them out in the real world, you'd probably never know that they were mentally ill. Well, we were welcomed into the ward with a big bang. On our first day, a girl in her mid-20s who was admitted the day before, suffering from postpartum psychosis and not yet stabilized with medication, kicked the nurse who was treating her and consequently spent 4 hours in the restraint room. Just as a side note, restraints by 4 limbs to a bed is a common therapeutic treatment for patients who are completely out of control and pose a physical danger to the staff, other patients, and themselves. The room is well ventilated with open windows. The nurse comes to check on the patient every 15 minutes, and if the patient wants to eat something, they are allowed, of course. They had to bring in 4 large men to get her in there. Meanwhile, we poor students on our very first day, shocked and scared out of our wits, didn't have a pass card. As a result, we were stuck outside the nurse's station, cornered against the wall as the screaming patient was dragged before our eyes. The rest of the patients, who we were terrified would start getting violent as well, stood with us looking on. Yeah, definitely not a pleasant first day. And then on our third day, we witnessed a suicide attempt by a 19-year-old patient with borderline personality disorder. Of course, sharp objects are not allowed in the ward, but somehow this girl managed to get a hold of a pencil sharpener and had removed the sharp part and slit her wrist with it. I have never seen so much blood. The doctors and nurses in this ward are the nicest and most patient from any staff I've worked with thus far. It is because of them that we adjusted to life in a closed ward so quickly. They literally exert calmness onto the patients and onto the rest of the staff. They were always available and happy to answer questions and reassure us if necessary. We quickly learned that there's really nothing to fear. The patients saw us as authority figures, so they respected us and often wanted to sit with us to talk about their problems. And most patients are not physically dangerous, as long as they've taken their meds. On the first day, we had nearly hyperventilated when a patient was put into restraints. But already by the second week, we were totally comfortable visiting the restraint room to feed the patient her lunch, even when one of her hands had come loose from the restraint. So yeah, about the patients. They are completely insane. So we've got one patient who's pregnant, and another who thinks she's pregnant. The latter understands that she's mentally unstable, and every day she goes to the head nurse asking for a meeting with a lawyer to make arrangements to give her future child up for adoption because she knows she won't be able to take care of him. Many patients don't understand what is and isn't considered appropriate conversation topics. For For example, one patient can't stop telling people about her diaphragm and her trips to the mikveh and the satisfying sex life she shares with her husband. And there's another patient who was here in Israel from Russia on some kind of birthright type of trip and just suddenly went insane and was admitted to the hospital. When we got there, she was in a catatonic state, like staring into space, unresponsive to any sort of verbal stimulation. Slowly but surely, over the course of our placement, she became more and more responsive, and also more and more weird. Weird and entertaining. This girl is from Russia, yet for some reason only speaks and responds to English, Spanish, and Italian. On the odd occasion when this patient isn't following the staff around the ward, driving us crazy with her non-stop gibberish in foreign languages, she is found dancing in front of the TV to Adam Lambert's "What Do You Want From Me?" After about a month in the hospital and thousands of shekels in medical bills, the head nurse flew with this girl back to Russia to have her admitted to a mental hospital there. My personal patient was a 29-year-old woman with schizophrenia. She has been in and out of the system since the age of 17. This woman is married and has 2 kids. She's married to a man who is approaching 48 and is not quite 100% himself, and her 2 kids were conceived against medical advice. These kids are in foster care. At the beginning, I had no idea how to speak to a mental patient, but I learned quickly. I'm very good at talking to people. It's a natural talent. And speaking to a mental patient really isn't all that different. Basically, you take cues from the patient yourself. My patient is like the sweetest woman, like kind of childish in personality and thought process, and I really managed to build a connection with her over the 4 weeks that I spent with her. Of course, she was very, very distraught when I had to leave, but I think it worked out for the best that she was released on the hospital on my last day. My 2 friends and I were in the closed ward for just a short period of time, just 12 shifts spread out over 1 month. Because we were there for such a short period of time, there was really a limit as to how much patient progress we were able to see. Like really one of the most fascinating parts was witnessing the personal progress of a certain patient. That patient who was restrained on our first day was released on our last day in a much, much better state. It was incredible to see and was also very emotional for all of us. Before starting this placement, I couldn't for the life of me understand why anyone would choose to work in this field. I thought that for sure the doctors and the nurses' aides were weirdos and a little crazy themselves. I definitely don't think that anymore. I wouldn't say that 100% I'd want to work in a mental hospital, but I don't think I would rule it out just yet. Overall, this was a very good experience. It was incredibly interesting and I learned a lot more than I learned in class. The purpose of this placement was to lower the stigma surrounding the mentally ill and the mentally unstable, and not to be afraid if we were to come across such a patient when working in any other medical environment. This goal was accomplished without a doubt. Looking back, just to think, on the first couple of days we basically locked ourselves in the nurse's station trying to get as far away as possible from any patient. But then, by the last day, we felt totally comfortable just sitting down next to them for a little chat, making rounds to all the patients to say personal goodbyes, and giving goodbye hugs to those who had actually showered in the morning. Yes, overall, a very positive experience. Thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends, and I will see you in my next video. So of course I had to get dressed up for your wedding video. I even brought along some shtick. Can't forget this, or this. And I'm not really quite sure what we were supposed to do with these.